This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about the energy transition, green capitalism, and sacrifice zones, people, and territories. For most citizens of the so called developed world, um, they only see the, the pretty side of the energy transition, of the green capitalism that promises a beautiful new brave world. We just have to believe and trust the techno-fixism promises, and everything will be fine. Beautiful designs, beautiful technologies, amazing technologies, smart cities, smart life, easy life, and that's the future of civilization promised by the acolytes of green capitalism. And green capitalism is everywhere. It's not. It's exactly. It's the dominant culture. Capitalism is the dominant system, and green capitalism is one of the dominant cultures of current times. Because it keeps people. It keeps people in the idea of a better future without the need to confront capitalism. We don't need to confront capitalism. We just need to believe in the promises. Green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, thorium, central nuclear power plants. All the it's a whole range of promises to electrify the economy and the society. Therefore, we can phase out fossil fuels. Maybe we will phase out fossil fuels when we just empty the earth, the earth of it. Everything. Just imagine. We just forget about these things. The Americans are one of the largest producers of oil. From where? Shale oil. That is incredible. That we just Canada, another producer from where? Tar sands, Alberta. What does it cost? How much energy do you spend? How much water do you need to separate the sand, to separate the tar from the sand in order to produce oil? Does it matter? Do we care about that? No. How much rare earths? What's the amount of rare earths and iron and aluminium and copper and other minerals are necessary for the green transition? So there we need to how much we need to increase. I mean, how much? But of course, there are many entrepreneurs, many industrialists, that many mining companies operating in many parts of the world They do not care about that. It's about profits. So profit is what, if what the maximization of profits and the accumulation of wealth. Therefore, the sacrificial zones and peoples and territories and ecosystems are just the is just it is the means. It's seen as the means to achieve an end, and that's what we see. It doesn't matter that we always, one thing is, when we need to satisfy, when we do something, whenever an economic activity, when we grow food, or we build tools, or we build a house, or whatever it is that we need to survive, we need resources, and we need land and water and whatever, and wood and all the rest. But that's to satisfy basic needs, the needs that we need a shelter, and we need clothing, and we need food and clean water and energy. Okay, that's what we really need. And we need a lot of time for us. Not to be all the time in a consumist mode, feeling the need to consume, kind of to alleviate our anxieties, to distract us, to keep away from living with ourselves, with our existential doubts about what we are doing with our lives, performing bullshit jobs and things like that, and relations and social relations and professional relations that, instead of being rewarding, are punishing us, are destroying our inner, the human side of ourselves. It is a huge difference between when we look for when we extract something from nature, to sustain ourselves, our families, our community, and the other is when you go, that you look for stuff that you are going to make profit out of it, from killing whales to clear cutting a forest, or to dig deep on earth and looking for minerals, or to dig or to drill a well to extract oil, or whatever it is. When we do it for profit, it immediately changes our behavior, because we are not doing something that is to provide. It is to provide, but the main reason we are doing it is for profit, is for wealth accumulation, is for power and control. And if we do not understand it about capitalism, we do not understand that we cannot we do not change. It is a systemic problem. It's not only about that we allow the worst people among us to take over power, because they are the ones that they do not care. The ones that do not really care what they have to do in order to achieve their goals. But all of us are involved in the process because we need to find a job. We need to provide for ourselves and for our families. And then we are always in this dependent system, just that makes us all accomplices of a system that basically is death driven, is annihilation, is an annihilation system, is a system that is driven towards annihilation. Technofixism and technoscientism are they represent they represent the system, which means that it is this idea that we are solving the problems, but while we are creating wealth and creating jobs and evolving and developing civilization, and it is, and we have to believe that what we are doing is a kind of a destiny, is the human destiny. It's something cosmopolitan, middle class life makes people live, the people that has these kind of jobs, 9-to-5 jobs, and professional managerial class jobs, and even other jobs. They live detached from the reality of where does the resources come from. There's where does the meat come from? Where does the oil come from? Everybody knows that, have an idea about where it comes from. But people avoid to think about the reality of it, the consequences of it, the impact that it has on people, animals, environment. That's what we avoid to. We do not want to be disturbed, that our cozy lives be disturbed by that. And we just believe that we do the right thing for those who can afford it, to buy the electric car, to be part of that movement, to be part of, because it's already part of a status. It's not only because you are doing the right thing, but because owning a Tesla is also is a social status. It's kind of it's not the same thing. It's and this is exactly what's wrong. Part of what's wrong with the system that we need to adapt in order to survive. But we need to adapt, but we also can resist, and we also can demand change. We also can organize, if we understand that it would be much better for all of us, a different system, and a political, a social and ecological, a political economy, for a sufficiency economy would be much better for all of us, instead of for-profit driven economy, but we need to understand that what is lacking, that in the long run, I don't mean long run, but in 1 decade or two, we could be much better, and the economy, the world economy, would be a different economy, and the global order, a new global order, could be built by us and controlled by us. We can design and implement mechanisms and institutions and organizations, international, at the national and international level, that can enhance cooperation instead of competition, and we can have, that is possible. This is not utopia. Utopia is what we have. This utopia of a growth economy, a profit-driven growth economy, debt-based economy, that, by the way, is very important to understand, that is a debt-based economy, with all the negative consequences that it has. We can overcome it. We can overrule it. But for that to happen, of course, we need to understand. We need to understand how this system really works, the reality, the layers of reality that allows the wealth accumulation, the for-profit economy, accumulate wealth for a very little, for the few to accumulate enormous amounts of wealth and have immense power and control over people, resources, territories, everything, and tell us how we must live, what we should die for, what's the right things to, what to think, what to feel, what to believe, and everything else. And they tell us this is freedom and democracy, while making you live, while imposing on us manufacture scarcity and austerity. This is, but at the same time, we still have the consumer economy for those who can afford it. Again, for those who have or who earn enough money, or have rents, or whatever is can afford to buy the stuff. The stuff is there to buy, because it's more and more stuff, and always innovation and more stuff and more stuff, because then we have choice. Wherever you go, you see, I mean, it's so much stuff everywhere, and if that stuff exists, it's because some people, I don't know, people buy it. Why do people buy it? Do they need it? Do we buy because we need it? Or do we buy because of other reasons? You know, why should we buy? Why should we eat stuff that is processed and that's extra energy to be to process foods and to keep them stored and all that, and add chemicals in order that they can have a long shelf time. Why don't we eat more fresh food? I mean, and it's not. How should we buy so? I mean, why are we incentivized to participate in a commodified society if that society is not fair, and if we have to do, and if you have to be dependent on so many negative things in order to make the money? So we don't care, because we live focused in our problems, which is normal. I know, I understand it. We live focused in our problems, no, our limitations. We are always worried about money, most of us, or at least many people. And then we do not have, I mean, there is the wars and things like that, but we need to be worried about the wars and about the suffering, that's for sure. But we also need to understand why those wars, how can we, why are we not able to stop them? What's wrong? If there is democracy and freedom, why are we so powerless? And it's the same economically. We are always there is always a permanent class war. It's against us. And nevertheless, we believe we are free. In dictatorial and authoritarian and regimes, people are also free. People have freedom of movement, and people can buy whatever they afford to buy. What they cannot, it's the same. They do. Those who don't interfere with politics, who don't challenge the system, they usually do not have problems. They can thrive. That's when people think about a dictatorship, they think that everyone is, of course there is, nobody wants to live in a dictatorship, but there are still freedoms. The same freedoms that we, in our supposed liberal democracies, we have. And we are witnessing across our countries in Europe, in all the European Union, that people are not allowed to challenge the dominant narratives. That people are starting to be cancelled, dismissed. I mean, they just lose their jobs. They are persecuted. They are jailed. And maybe even worse. So, what's the difference? That's why we need to look deeper than that, and we need to understand the reality, the dark side, the other side of the coin, whatever you want to call it. It's just that I mean, you know, the lifestyle and the mentality of the petty bourgeoisie is shallow understanding, people full of themselves, you know, it's not, I mean, it and then they get a surprise when their lives turn, and there is when they find out that maybe there is a dark side that can affect their own lives. They probably, then they might, the problem is that's what we face. These people are so out of touch with reality that then they just follow the wrong people. They just, you know, then the immigrants and the poor and the homeless and you know, and all the people that are below them, they are the ones to blame because they are inferior. They are not going to blame the superiors, the ones that are the ones that are really responsible for the mess. They blame them because they are the establishment. But they, at the same time, the ones that show themselves that are part of the establishment, but they present themselves as saviors, as the ones that want to drain the swamp, you know, the ones that's exactly the example of that we then pick the foxes to make to clean, not to clean, to put the foxes in charge of the chicken coop. That's what I want to say. That's crazy. That's what. The delusion of green capitalism and the green transition, and it's not because we should not do. We may ask, so we should keep things the same. We need to change? Of course we need to change. And technology can be part, or should be part, of that change. That's not that's not the point. The point is what we do not discuss, which is, the point is that we do not confront the capitalist system that has always, capitalist and imperialist colonialist system that has been always about creating sacrificial zones or peoples, territories, by externalizing costs, by what I mean, things that don't carry, just becomes externalities, and disposability of people and animals. That is the system. This system will make us, you, me, and whoever, when it doesn't need you. That's why they don't want a welfare system, a welfare state, because they just want you to die if you do not have had any use for them anymore. They want all the resources, all the wealth for them. They don't want the state to function, to be the function as a social equalizer, which is the role of the state, to keep the social cohesion, not to protect the wealthy. That's what they want. They just want the state to have a single function, domestically and internationally, to defend the upper class, especially the oligarchy, the oligarchs and plutocrats. And for those who believe that they are not part of the useless class or the disposable class, it's because they are delusional. Because they do not understand that even if you are part of the professional managerial class, when they will not need you, or if you, for some reason, do not comply with their terms, they will make your life miserable. Because then, for them, you are not anymore an asset, because how they read reality. And when you become a liability, they trash you. They just don't want, they will make sure that they don't want to waste their time, their money, or anything with you. So there is only compliance. That's why they want, that's why after 9/11, Bush just go for a shopping, That's what you need to do. You don't have to ask questions. What you need to do to help the country, go out for shopping. That's what they want from us. They want compliance at every level. Don't ask questions. Do not confront power. Do not try to understand power dynamics. Do not try to understand class warfare. Do not try to understand why there is the need for sacrificial zones. For green colonialism. For idea, it's not about the transition. We need that transition. We need to have a transition, but a transition to what? Controlled by whom? That's the point. Why are we always waiting from solutions that come from the people that exploit us, that want to control the resources, that they want to control everything? Those that want the state to be not privatized, but to be controlled but why they love public-private partnerships? Because they control the state without the need to have the burden of the state. That's why they don't want, these people do not want to a global government. They want to have the power to dictate global governance and have the means to enforce it. What are the means? Economic means, financial means, which means that they need to control the international institutions and mechanisms and the military power. That's why NATO exists. NATO exists because it can be used, and the enlargement of NATO as the purpose, not only the purpose, it was the purpose to corner Russia, that's for sure, but also to be used worldwide as a mechanism for class warfare, as a mechanism to make sure that the Western oligarchs and plutocrats would always be in charge. They can have partnerships with whoever, everywhere in the world, but always as junior partners. They do not want equals, especially the Americans. When we talk about Americans, we have to talk about the British, and we have to talk about the Europeans in general, the elite, the European elites. That's the problem we have now. They want elites everywhere because it's their class. They want to have partnerships with the oligarchs and plutocrats wherever it is. Okay? In Russia, in China, in India, in Indonesia, all these major countries, in Brazil, I mean, all these countries, they want, and smaller countries as well, they want that partnership. They want those alliances. It's a class alliances, okay? But they want them as junior partners, so they will have always the last say. And this is how we need to read. This is the kind of lenses we need to use to read the reality of the current historical moment. If we want to understand what's going on, because otherwise we just do not see. If we see this only through the lenses of the great power competition, we miss some points. I mean, there is no great power competition. There is competition between China and the West, or the United States empire. That competition exists, but that competition could be would not need to be the way it is if there was room for cooperation. Because if there was room for cooperation, I believe the Chinese would be open for that. It is the West, it is the American neocons, it is the American deep state, oligarchs and plutocrats, and the permanent bureaucracy that do not want it, do not want to have that, allow anybody, any country, any regime, anywhere to challenge the hegemony of the United States. This is the reality. And that's why in here we Westerners need to understand it. Not to excuse China, not to justify whatever Russia is doing in Ukraine. I mean, this is not trying to justify anything. And by the way, if we really care about truth, we should know that we are so propagandized and lied about China and Russia and Iran and every other place, and Venezuela and every, it's not because they are paradises. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's because they are demonized and dehumanized on purpose, because they don't want us to see the truth. The truth is that the West, that's the West that doesn't want cooperation. It's the West that wants to dictate the global governance. So it's the West that is responsible for the militarization, because then the other countries don't have any other choice. Isn't that obvious? That they need to militarize in order to make sure that they can defend themselves against the Western imperialism. What choice do they have? For long ago, that China has been surrounded by American military bases. They can see them from Beijing, kind of. You can watch the documentary by the deceased John Pilger. It's called "The War We Can See," or "The War We Don't See," or something like that. I do not remember right now if I'm correct about the title of the, but you can find it. So the idea is that we need to confront the existing system. It's not, of course, that's an international problem. It's not only a problem, and that's why it's so difficult. Because in the countries that are now developing, like China, they believe in the market, of course, because they are in the phase where they see their economy is prospering, so they look for opportunities. They want to have better lives. They want to get good educations for their children, and they tend to believe that what they are doing is the right thing, because they are, in spite the problems they have. Of course, every country has problems, but they have been witnessing a change in their society that has been lifting millions and millions out of poverty through hard work. Okay, it's about hard work, but also education, public investment, not just through private enterprise. That has never existed. There is not just such thing as a free market. That is just another illusion to confuse us, the poor, in order to make us believe that government is bad. But if it's a right-wing government, it's not bad. It's just a left wing. Because they call left wing the parties that have very little to nothing of left-wing values anymore. The parties that are mainly applying neoliberal policies, they still call them leftists. And even communists or socialists, some people can even label them communists and socialists. And there are people that believe it, and that is the problem. They don't see that what we are, that there is no such thing as a country without a state. The state the state is us. The problem that is now, the state is controlled by oligarchs and plutocrats. So the change we need to see, the change we need to implement it requires a global movement. It doesn't mean that we cannot build local movements, national movements, but we need to understand the values, and that is where the left is so. In the left, people try to find divisions where they do not exist, and that to me explains how much people are influenced by the division, by the capitalist culture. By this division that is concentrated in people. My vision is better than yours. My theory is better than yours. This individualistic, this self-centric perspective of righteousness, of superiority, and the left has this problem and needs to solve this problem, because we need to discuss, because we cannot discuss. We have people that are kind of eco-socialist people that think about the growth, and they have people that think about growth. And they have and they criticize each other instead of trying to see that it's not about growth or degrowth. It's about sufficiency. It's about developing the economies that need to be developed to become sufficient, to become able to provide for the people, while being kept, while avoiding overshoot, while avoiding creating sacrificial zones. Because if we have left values, we do not want our well-being to be at the cost of someone else. I do not want my share of whatever it is to be at the expenses of anybody else. Okay? Because then I cannot. What am I? What kind of doesn't then because that's the reality. That's physics limits. And of course there are people talking about degrowth. That there are things that we need to degrow, because we already have degrowth. since we in the West, since 2008, but much that we are being imposed, that the elites have been imposing on us austerity measures, political austerity, economic austerity, politically driven, that have been degrowing, that's a form of degrowth, our living standards. So degrowth exists. That's why there are so much homelessness, homeless people, and so much debt and everything else. So there are some things that we need to produce more, and a lot of things that we need to produce less. If we care about the environment, if we care about the planet Earth, if we care about animals and plants and trees and forests and rivers and the ocean and the mountains and everything else. It's not only about the marvels of technology. We cannot believe in the absolutism of technofixism. We cannot think that we can fix everything through technology and science. We need to reduce our consumption. We need to have more free time. We don't need to externalize. If we believe that that's a question of entitlement, if we believe that we are entitled to certain things for whatever reason, because we are, whatever is the reason, and I don't need to, we are already assuming that we are superior, that we're part of a superior class, which is already a huge problem. Because we always can justify everything. That's what meritocracy is about. Is to justify the differences, the huge differences between the haves and the have-nots. It's not because you should not recognize merit where it exists. It is because that we can use merit to justify many other things that has nothing to do with merit, and that's how we need to be, to see to look into the details and see how easily we are manipulated to think that there are people better than us, that deserve better things, that justify the inequality. And then there is always this kind of it has always existed. Disease has always existed. It doesn't mean that we not try to fight it in order to recover wealth, our health, all the things that it's not because it's not, even if we even that's like someone like me that believes that inequality has been created artificially, it has been manufactured It was not an inherent to the human condition. It was created. It was a cultural and economic and social creation, and political, of course. But that doesn't matter. It matters that even if it has always existed, it doesn't mean that we do not try to solve it, or we do not try, or we just we justify it by making it even worse, and by creating and by sacrificing people, because I always think that unnecessary suffering, when we inflict unnecessary suffering in people, animals, in order to justify something, it is a moral bankruptcy. It is what is wrong about the for-profit economies. That is always the primacy of private property, the primacy of wealth accumulation, the primacy of the private law and property law above everything else, allows us to do what is not, to make, to commit crimes and homicides and ecocide that are inexcusable. I mean, it has been proven, the 500 years of Western European colonial rule, it has given us examples how we destroy and create these sacrificial zones and peoples and everything else in order to create wealth, to accumulate wealth, that then is absurdly used to build temples and to build palaces and to build this for the glory of the empire. And we should be able that imperialist civilization cannot coexist with freedom and the fundamental rights. That's just a fact of life. So the takeaway of this conversation or monologue or whatever you want to call it is that we need to change the lenses through which we interpret and analyze the reality, if we really want, or if you really believe that we and the future generations deserve, and I'm talking about people and nature, animals and everything else, deserve to have a planet, a livable planet with healthy ecosystems, not just a transhumanistic, techno-fascistic civilization. So that is all for today. Thanks for listening. I'll be back soon.